This week, Kevin L. Jackson from Total Network Services is with us to discuss the challenge of securing IoT devices. Then, in the enterprise news, cyber insurance joins the Unicorn Club. Bishop Fox raises a $75 million Series B, a dozen more funding rounds that we'll talk about, maybe some of them. XM Cyber acquires Cyber Observer. Zendesk gets bought by private equity. 5 more rounds of security layoffs in the industry. Some very interesting new products, both open source and commercial. Survival of the quickest, and a ransom victim earning money from its payment. Finally, we're airing our last pre-recorded interview from RSA, where Matt Alderman interviews Fleming Shi, CTO Barracuda Networks, and Merritt Maxim, VP and Research Director at Forrester, about trends in identity and access.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Picture your team being able to map out the external attack surface as it grows and see the same attack vectors as a hacker does. Most tools out there do asset discovery, but stop there. Enter Detectify. It takes an inventory of exposed web assets and automates vulnerability testing for security misconfigurations, expiring subdomains, and risks in third-party software. Here's the cool part. They crowdsource payloads from leading ethical hackers. It finds bugs you actually want to fix and finds them in time. Start a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. Go hack yourself.
Customers want fast and frictionless digital experiences, yet also expect protection against breaches, privacy violations, and fraud. Drive engagement by optimizing security and convenience to attract and retain customers. Use the PingOne cloud platform to build, test, and optimize digital experiences. The no-code orchestration engine weaves together authentication, user management, and MFA, all of which can enhance security, drive engagement, and boost revenues. Visit securityweekly.com/ping identity to learn more. Deepwatch helps secure the digital economy by protecting and defending enterprise networks everywhere, every day. Deepwatch leverages its highly automated cloud-based SOC platform backed by a world-class team of experts who monitor, detect, and respond to threats on customers' digital assets 24/7, 365. Many of the world's leading brands rely on Deepwatch's managed detection and response. Visit securityweekly.com/Deepwatch to learn more. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy Mac and Cheese Day. This is episode 280, recorded on Thursday, July 14th, 2022. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the master of marketing, the mayor of mayhem, Tyler Shields. How are you, Tyler?
Hey, Adrian. Good to semi-see you in that blurry window to your reality we got today. So video mayhem is apparently striking us left and right.
Yeah, I am trying out a new webcam. This one advertises that it's as good as a digital SLR, but in a small webcam package, and it is kind of beta. So doing some beta testing
It's as good as a digital SLR is for milliseconds at a time till it falls out of focus.
Apparently, yes. I will be reporting this bug to them. I'll have to let them know about that. Also joining me is the Admiral of AppSec, the King of Kubernetes, John Kinsella. How are you, John?
King of Kubernetes. Wow, there's a title. I'm doing good. I'm sort of hungry now. You mentioned mac and cheese, though.
Yeah, that is officially your title now. You can take that and use that since I used it live on a podcast.
Woohoo!
It's a big deal. It's a big deal to be anointed a king of something. I'm only the master. I'm not the king. I'm just a master.
Yeah. I don't know if it's weird, but I always liked mac and cheese with soy sauce. Am I the only one that does that?
120% weird, friend. Yes.
Heard of it, but yeah.
No, never heard of it.
Oh, really?
Super weird.
Heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
No.
But it is a thing. John is saying it's a legit thing.
It's sort of like people putting potato chips on tuna casseroles. So I think it's sort of maybe regional.
See that? Yeah, that would be good. You get the crunch.
Regional. Oh my gosh, I just feel like I am 100% outvoted with strangeness today.
Well, we're just one of those podcasts. We attract weirdos. I don't know. I'm always fine with not being, the most normal, average person of the bunch. I've accepted that just long ago, that I don't easily fit into expectations.
Yeah, soy sauce is not surprising. Go ahead, A.
Yeah, a few announcements, and then we will get to our first guest here. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover in one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review suggestions monthly and will reach out to you once reviewed. In fact, I did my reviews last night. Totally cleared my queue out, went through all my guest suggestions in there. Also, if you want to give us feedback in the show, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up on Twitter at SecWeekly, @SecWeekly, sorry, or me directly at Zawaba, SAWABA. Leave a comment on YouTube. Also, I'd love it if some of you folks could find the time to rate us or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It would be great to get some reviews that represent the current format, which has only really been around in the current co-host lineup, which has really just been around for a year or so. And it'd be nice to get some newer reviews on there, or just some feedback. If you just want to say hello, let us know how we're doing. That would be great. All right, and today's topic is securing IoT devices. We're excited to have Kevin Jackson, Senior VP at Total Network Services, with us. Kevin is a U.S. Navy veteran, has a very long bio. I can't go through the whole thing, but author of several books, including one called Click to Transform. Does a lot of online training, looks like, has provided consulting services for cloud, cybersecurity, digital transformation projects, and also has his own podcast, Digital Transformers, which is part of the Supply Chain Now podcast network. Welcome, Kevin.
Well, hey, glad to be here. But where's my mac and cheese? I want it hot with no sauce, please.
It must have gotten delivered to the wrong house. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Logistically, that would be possible in this day and age of easy food delivery. We could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Show. Just have the Amazon drone drop it.
Yeah, there you go. Hot and ready at your
tactical
door.
Mac and cheese strikes.
Tactical mac and cheese strikes. My favorite mac and cheese, I think Trader Joe's has these frozen mac and cheese balls, and they're amazing. They're just like, not quite bite size, maybe a couple bites, but a really good, fun appetizer snack. Yeah, my kids love them.
I have to try that out.
Yeah. But yeah, so first off, Kevin, as I mentioned when I introduced you, you've done a ton of stuff. You can talk supply chain, digital transformation, cloud, automation, and a host of other topics in addition to IoT. But I'm curious from your perspective, covering a lot of stuff outside just security. We tend to have a lot of guests that have been in security for decades. And we do kind of have that echo effect where we all talk to other security people, where we don't all step outside the echo chamber very often. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on when security really first started coming into a lot of those conversations you're having, like with digital transformation, cloud, and supply chain, some of these other areas that you live and work in.
Well, I think a lot of this comes from my background. Like I was a carrier pilot in the Navy. I flew on off aircraft carriers, and I flew E2Cs or Hawkeyes. That's if you look at an aircraft carrier, you see these planes with big domes on top. That's the command and control, and that's what I flew. And in doing that, we basically controlled all of the strike package, all the other aircraft. So we had to communicate with them. So, and we used all different kinds of communications, and of course, has to be secure. So, security has always been a part of my life, especially communication security. later, as I started working with NASA and spacecraft and low Earth orbit satellites, we wanted to secure that information as well. And when I retired from the military, I actually started working. My second job out of the military was with J.P. Morgan Chase. And it sounds funny now. This was like 1999, and we were just sort of rolling out home banking. And of course, if you're in a financial institution, you need to protect your information. And we were working over the early internet, right? And you wanted to secure your information and data from the consumer's point of view. And we started using the internet. And everybody was, initially there was this big battle that the internet was only for academics. No, we want to, use it to make all that dirty money. So it came about, okay, how do we secure the information and data across the internet on these different business models when I was working with IBM. So, and it continued today as all these different advanced technologies were layered on top of cloud computing. So security has kind of been always part of my life, but from an operational point of view, not the technical point of view. So, how do you get data? How do you get information that is secure, but where security is invisible? It doesn't affect what you're doing.
Right. So yeah, definitely the right place to be to get into security. The early days of banking, and the internet. But when did you really start seeing it come into conversations that you were having? Digital transformation conversations, cloud stuff like that. Like for you, has security always been part of that conversation, or is it more recently that you've seen people asking more about it, caring more about it?
Well, security has always been part of the conversation, but it's like at the end of the conversation, everyone talked about what needs to be done, what the business model is, who needs to talk to who. And then at the end, that's security stuff. Let's bolt that on. And it never really worked well when you bolt it on. And then as the industry transitioned from like building your own IT into leveraging cloud-based information technology, then everybody started talking about, well, this is not my server. It's not my network. How do I make sure that what I'm doing is secure when I'm not running it? And about then is where the security conversation was first. It was like, my data is leaving the building. How do I make sure that my data is protected? And then that's when security started to become baked in to enterprise solutions. And then we all sort of migrated away from these protected enterprise solutions to bring your own device and working from home. And we all know what happened with COVID. And then it was, oh, wow, you're not working over this nice protected network that we built for you to work in. You now have a network, you're working at home, and we have no idea of who's listening to you or what you're doing. And that's when it got real, because everyone was using commercial devices on home network, and it was wireless. And enterprises sort of went wild there because you can no longer, not only you can't control how people are getting information, but you want to make it easy and you want to help people be able to work from anywhere with anything. And then security being baked into the processes became very important.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen that that cartoon, Tom Fishburne, who does or Fishburne, who does Marketunist, has this great cartoon where somebody's in a conference room saying, digital transformation is years away, and there's this big wrecking ball coming in with COVID printed on the
exactly.
You seen that one?
So, yeah. But see, we were talking about enterprises at the beginning of 2000, I guess. 2020, 2021. Digital transformation and leveraging advanced technology was like 5 years away. It was in the plan, right? It was letting people work from home. Yeah, we'll get to that in 2 or 3 years when we need it. And then, bam, COVID hit. And people said, oh, okay, stay home. Oh, no, they got to work. How do we fix that? And it became an immediate need. And digital transformation no longer became something that was on the roadmap. It became critical that you had to do today. And I think another issue that people didn't think about was, everybody thought about your identity, protection of your identity, because you don't want to get that stolen. Everybody thought about protecting the data, so they use encryption. But what no one was really thinking about was protecting the device, because they said, hey, we're going to give you the laptop, we're going to give you the smartphone or whatever you need to access the information, and we'll take care of that. But many organizations said, well, we're not going to have you use your own device. We're not going to allow you to work from home. We're not going to allow to bring your own device policy, right? But then when COVID hit, they had no choice. And that's when all of the enterprises experienced the big hacks that you never heard about.
I think I can't tell you how many people I heard, talking about not being able to get a hold of MacBooks or a MacBook configured with the right configuration. Like Apple, I'm sure maybe PC manufacturers had the same issue, but it tended to be Macs. I'd hear people say, it's like an 8-month wait for the, like, how do we onboard these new employees that we're hiring? Like, we
right.
don't have any, like you're almost forced to do some BYOD. And on that, since you brought up BYOD, that's a great, I think, transition to IoT devices and mobile devices. Supposedly there's more mobile devices out there than there are people in the world right now. And I guess once you start thinking about the fact that you go to a restaurant, somebody, processes your credit card on a mobile POS, or you go to a retail store and there's an iPad there that they're using as a POS device. I guess there's so many use cases for mobile devices that are other than just, a personal phone that you own, that I could see there being, like triple the number of humans on the planet in terms of numbers of mobile devices out there. So,
well, absolutely. And people use mobile devices every day that they don't see as mobile devices. How about your car? Is your car a mobile device?
Once we start talking about 4G and 5G radios, once you start talking about
absolutely
radio in it, right? Mm-hmm.
But how about Alexa, right? That is a mobile device. It's a remote device. And your Alexa follows you to different devices, and it brings your information with it. How do you protect that data? How do you protect that information? I mean, my Alexa just heard me say her name, and now she's talking. So, how do you manage your enterprise data in this environment where you have computers everywhere, listening to you, talking to you, looking at you? How do you protect your data?
Right. So, I think at this point, maybe tell me a little bit about what you do at TNS and how your products address some of these IoT issues, because there's so many IoT devices out there. I think what you guys focus on is a bit more maybe business focused, industrial focused, kind of large scale, maybe a lot of devices that we don't really think about when we think IoT.
Right. Well, the story begins about 2 years ago, and I was approached by a gentleman who was the CEO of the Telecommunications Industry Association. He happened to be my classmate from the U.S. Naval Academy where I graduated. And this was shortly after the SolarWinds hack, where industries were, wondering about what they were going to do because open source software had basically created a backdoor into just about, tens of thousands of enterprises. And in the end, it was a software supply chain issue. Because when you buy software, commercial software or government software, you have no visibility in the background of that software. You don't do a background check on software. You do background checks on people, but where did this software come? Who created this software? What software components go into this software? And that's because there was no visibility. So with all of the devices connected to the internet, this now becomes a massive security vulnerability across the ICT industry. And SolarWinds just highlighted it, right? So as the leading industry standards organization, the Telecommunications Industry Association wanted to create a standard to address the lack of security in the ICT supply chain. So he reached out to me and said, well, do you have any ideas? I don't understand, blockchain. Can blockchain help? And I said, yes, I believe it can, because blockchain is basically a ledger of transactions, and you could keep a digital record of transactions regarding the security of a piece of software or even the security of a piece of hardware. So it was then where we sort of conceptualized the use of blockchain to, quote, tokenize devices and software. And by keeping track of what happened to the software components, you would now be able to have visibility into its pedigree. You could essentially do a background check on the software that you're using. Because before SolarWinds, maybe before that, people just assumed that the software you got from a vendor was good. And if the vendor told you to do something to fix the software, you just did it. It was sort of out of everyone's worldview that there could be a vulnerability before the vendor actually created the software. And that's what SolarWinds was. And in today's world, where everyone is using, or many people are using open source software, and you try to take open source with your commercial software, you need to understand what GitHub components went into that software and what's the pedigree of those software components, maybe even the APIs that are used to interact with this software. These are huge vulnerabilities. So we basically we put the software on a blockchain. And I know a lot of people have heard of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, but they've always heard it within the context of like Bored Ape, right? Or crypto kittens.
Yeah.
and in art. Mm-hmm. But if you tokenize a piece of software, you can now track it. And digital art is nothing but software. So in a way, you create an NFT of the software. And then you could keep track of any security relevant activity on that software in the metadata of the NFT. And in essence, that's what the UCID is, the Universal Communications Identifier.
Interesting. So, Kevin, it's neat the way you sort of laid that out, talking about the NFT and how that, similar to an NFT. Let's not go through too closely, especially with the prices right now. I'm curious when you were mentioning APIs. So how it's one thing, a software is something which is like it's installed on the machine, or you can have some sort of a signature on it. But what are you guys able to do to control from the API side of things?
Well, one of the issues in enterprises today is that they treat APIs sort of outside of the software security management bubble, when in reality, it is just a piece of software. You have an input and you have an output, and there's something goes on in the middle. But typically, you have no visibility into what goes on in the middle. So your API software should be under the exact same security management paradigm that you have with any type of software. You should have approved APIs that your security team has reviewed, that you understand the pedigree for, and that you know won't steal your data. And this is, it becomes even more important if you're leveraging cloud services, because a cloud service provider will have a catalog of thousands, if not tens of thousands of different APIs. And when you shouldn't just use all those APIs without any management. So it's important to review those APIs, understand which ones are critical to your business process or to your enterprise security. Review them and only let approved APIs be used within your business processes.
Yeah, so when and maybe we can jump into some specific use cases here. I think you had some specific examples that were pretty compelling here. And when you first described it to me, I kind of thought about it, as like pulling a Carfax. If you have the VIN for a car, a VIN is a unique identifier. And you want any kind of title, funny business, any service records, accidents, anything like that attached to, like you're talking about the pedigree of the device. Those are things for, something you're going to spend that much money on. Very important to keep attached to that vehicle. And here in the IoT world, you have IMEIs. You've got other unique identifiers, that we can use to attach these events to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, in a car, you use a VIN number. But on a smartphone, every device that's connected to the network has a mobile equipment identifier, or MEID, or an IMEI. So that enables you to uniquely identify that device globally. And there's two organizations, the TIA is one of them, and then GSMA. And as these standards organizations, they collaborate with each other to ensure that every device has a unique number, because that's needed by the telecommunications companies. When you're roaming, from country to country or from region to region, you want your services to come with you. So they have to know that your device is here or there. So what we basically do is tokenize that identifier, and now you can get a Carfax for your phone. Has it ever been cloned? As it is the SIM card properly configured? And did your phone come from an approved manufacturer? We were working with another organization, and there was a telephone communications company in South America. And we basically said, you have, a large percentage of the devices you have on your network are basically counterfeit. And don't you want to get those counterfeit devices off your network? And he said, well, no, because that's my business. Most of my business is my users using counterfeit devices. But that's really bad for the security of the information. So what we want to do is get that Carfax for your device. We can start with smartphones, your tablets, your Alexa, your car, because all of these are now part of your virtual existence. And it's important for you to protect the information and data associated with your life.
So some of these, can you talk about any of these specific use cases? I know when we were talking earlier, you had some specific organizations that were using this.
Right. So one, for instance, is the U.S. Census. In fact, we just announced the U.S. Census is going to be working with one of TNS's partners, Forward Edge AI, to support the 2030 census. Now, census data is critical to the United States because that data is used for everything from budgets to redistricting and determining how many representatives you have. But the census workers have to go out and knock on, thousands of doors to ask you, how long have you lived here? How many people are in your family? And this can be a dangerous environment. Also, they are trying to modernize. And back in 2020, they actually was the first time they issued smartphones and tablets to collect all of this information. And you'd figure that as soon as they try to use their smartphone, the first thing they got was a robocall. And then they got a scam text,
Yeah.
And it got so bad that the workers basically couldn't trust who was trying to contact them. And then it became questionable as to if somebody could, modify the software on the devices that are important for the census, what could you do to protect that? Well, it was also important to help the workers. Like if they get injured in the field, they wanted to leverage electronic processes so that they can report an injury or an incident. They could fill out appropriate documents. And how do you ensure that it's easy, it's quick, and that the data can be verified, that it's from an approved device, and that you can verify location and you can verify the data that's associated with the report. So that was the genesis of EMA, an electronic medical application that allows the census workers to, if they get into an incident in the field, to actually report the incident, get help as necessary, and fill out in an automated way the documentation they may need in order to file a claim. Well, you need to verify that the device, you need to make sure that the information is protected. So the UCID is actually an embedded service into these government managed devices to make sure that only approved devices are used and that the information and data that's collected is verifiable. So this happens to be the largest blockchain project across the US government right now, being done by the Commerce Department and the the Bureau of Census. So we're really proud. And the first deployment is going to be 50,000 devices in 2023, with an expansion to over 500,000 devices for the 2030 census.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the amount of temporary workers that they hire to do those censuses is insane. Yeah. And these are not high tech smartphones with TPMs in them or anything. Like the folks I interacted with showed up with some old cheap couple generations behind Samsungs. Right. Like I'm not even sure you could buy the number of modern devices that you would need for that use case in that amount of time. Again, talking about, people not being able to buy enough MacBooks, for their employees.
And the average age for a census worker, surprised to me, it was 60 years old.
Yeah, because they're temporary jobs, right? Like how are you going to find enough people to do this, with the time to do it, and for whatever pay that they're
I don't know what the pay is, but that's so as we move as a society into the metaverse, the protection of these devices, the identity of these devices becomes more and more critical, more and more important. So that's why we're really excited about how the UCID can be used to protect our information across the global network.
One of the other use cases, one of the few use cases I think that's really hit me as tangible for blockchain is the idea of preserving evidence. I think some of the examples that we had discussed, had because the blockchain is immutable, it's a good place to store evidence if you have a need to do that. I wonder if there has been any precedent for like a legal precedent that you've heard of a blockchain being used for evidence, maybe in a court situation.
So actually, yes, because one thing about software is that it's very important for you to understand if the information or data has been changed. So as more and more industries transition into the cloud and their information, their data, their software resided in cloud service providers, then people started using hashes, a cryptographic way of verifying that data has not been changed in order to support court cases. Because if you could prove that, let's say that a virtual machine that was running in 2 years ago was the same virtual machine that was running today, you can do that by looking at documents, security documents typically, about the status of that infrastructure. And you need to prove that that information has not changed from 2 years ago to today. And you use a hash to do that. Now, one thing that we're doing, I think this is actually pretty leading edge. Everyone has heard of robocalls and everyone has heard of the do not call list. And I'm sure many of the audience has called to report a number as being, someone that you don't want calling you, or a scammy text. Well, if you report that information, one of the biggest issues is that you can't prove in a court of law what happened because the information is so ephemeral. It goes away. And there's no way of proving to the court that what happened actually happened. So we're working with a partner, Forward Edge AI, and they have a product called Gabriel, and it's specifically designed to protect against robocalls. But more importantly, you can actually report a robocall or a bad or malevolent number. You get rewarded with Bitcoin, by the way, or gift cards. But that data is recorded and it's kept. And you can and it is protected, and you can actually hash that data and take it to court in order to prosecute companies, organizations that violate the no-call list.
Yeah.
So now, Forward Edge is actually helping users recover rewards, and the no-call list is actually can now be enforced. In fact, I think the U.S. government last year actually, fined companies millions of dollars, not based on Gabriel, but based on violations of the no-call list. And they may see that as just a cost of doing business. But now that you can have systems like Gabriel and UCID embedded into the global network, we can actually stop those annoying aspects of our modern life.
Yeah, and those fees are no joke either. And like you can get, if you can prove it, you can get paid. I want to say it was like $750 a pop or something like that per robocall.
Yeah, absolutely. But each instance. I think.
Yes, each instance. But you have to answer the call. I think if you just decline it, like it has to. There's a little detail in there where you would have to actually answer the call and make sure it's a robocall or something like that for it to have inconvenienced you for you to get that $750. I remember there being like a small detail there that you need to be aware of if you're going to try and go after this. But I think it's the best way to get rid of robocalls right now is, make the people doing that stuff, feel that financial pressure, feel that pain directly.
Yeah. Pain in the wallet is always effective.
Absolutely. And Kevin, before we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you, a little bit. I was looking at your bio and the stuff that you're doing, and you've been working on this really cool project with the June 19th Museum. Tell us a little bit about that. That broke ground this year, right? Was this year the grand opening?
Thank you for bringing up. So many people don't know. Well, Juneteenth, we just had the Juneteenth holiday in June, and that celebrates the day that the last enslaved people were freed in the United States. And that was in Galveston, Texas, at the end of the Civil War. Well, in Galveston, they have a custom house. It's an 1861 Galveston custom house. And the story goes that the actual document, General Order Number 3, that freed the last slaves on June 19th in 1865, was actually printed there in the custom house. So it's a historic, very historic location in the history of the United States. So I work with a consortium that has actually acquired that building to create the Galveston 1861 Juneteenth Museum. And we're going to, with a mission of enhancing and championing inclusion and diversity while working tirelessly to eliminate modern slavery. Back in 1860, there were about 20 million enslaved humans in the world. Today, there's about 40 million enslaved humans. And then you add on top of that the scourge of human trafficking. you hear almost every week about people that have died due to illegal human trafficking. So we had the christening of the building, the custom house, for the June 19th museum on June 19th, 2022. And we look forward to opening the museum on June 19th, 2023. But you don't have to wait because we are also in metaverse. On the 19th of every month, we're going to have virtual activities and virtual events where you can learn more about the 18th museum and history and what you can do to support inclusion and diversity.
And I assume those virtual events, you can find those through the website. I think it's just June19museum.com. Is that correct? We're losing you a little bit, Kevin.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think that one might be a bandwidth issue. We might be losing you a little bit. But yeah, it looks like it is June19museum.com. I just pulled it up, and lots of stuff to explore on that website. Hopefully we get Kevin back here so we can wrap the interview. Okay. All right. Well, right at the end of the conversation, almost got there. I don't know what happened there, but that was Kevin Jackson, and big thanks to him for coming on today. And that is the June19museum.com. And if I understood that correctly, the museum proper, the physical museum, opens up on June 19th, 2023. But they have a bunch of pictures of the museum on the website, and as Kevin was trying to say there, they've got some virtual events and stuff like that going on. Big thanks to Kevin for joining us today, talking about IoT, some interesting ideas about how. Oh, are you back?
Yeah, sorry about that. Not sure exactly what happened.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
This modern technology, it works when it works, and when it doesn't, everything goes to hell.
I picked up as smoothly as I could. I pitched the museum. You said, I think we heard that it physically opens 2023, but all kinds of virtual events, good stuff on the website that you can check out now.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And you can do hashtag June19museum and across just about any social media channel.
All right. Very good. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
No, well, thank you very much for having me.
All right. Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to catch up on a few weeks of enterprise security news.